with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, very little attention paid to what's going on in the Taiwan Strait, even though in China the consensus is a war is unavoidable because the constant provocation by the United States. So I'm making a program today to just using a collection of different video footages from mainland, from Taiwan, and from the United States to give you an idea of what is going on and the sentiment in China. The first one is a retired general from ROC, Republic of China, which is Taiwan's official name. He served the army in Taiwan. And since his retirement, he has been very busy with the different commentating and interviews, etc. So this is one of the things, one of the many interviews he did, and talking about once the war break, what it means.
美国要台湾扛90天，90天怎么扛？各位想一想，仗一打，所有的水电站、发电厂都断了。你不要讲军队打90天，你老百姓这90天都过不去。对，何况所谓速战速决的状况之下，3、4天所有的基础设施，包含军队的飞弹阵地，这么多年卫星都看得清清楚楚啊，都消灭大半了。那我们这个后备动员的兵、训练不足的兵，怎么去撑90天？这个90天根本就是不可达成的一个目标，而且美国也没有意愿去牺牲这么大的代价来救你，所以台湾老百姓真的放聪明一点。
Now he talked about the blitz, which is a scenario. There's another scenario is the blockade. Kim Iverson recently interviewed a rapper who is now serving military service in Taiwan. His name is Xiang Yu. So he also gave his account of his own observations, his own experience.
So really interested to get your perspective on this about really the sentiment of the people in Taiwan when it comes to the policies with China. What is the sentiment now regarding all of this with let's say Antony Blinken saying we're still upholding the one China policy? What are the people in Taiwan thinking about that?
I think it might come as a surprise to people in America that the U.S. is upholding the one China policy, but it's been the basis for the U.S. establishing diplomatic ties with Beijing. Even before the U.S. severed ties with the Taipei regime, the U.S. never recognized Taiwan as an independent country, but rather as before they recognized the so-called Republic of China as the legitimate government of all of China, and that Taiwan was simply a part of that. So nothing's really changed. Of course, the people in Taiwan right now are becoming increasingly impatient with and fed up with the incumbent party, the ruling party, the Democratic Progressive Party. And people want to see changes because our livelihoods are not really improving. And people intuitively know that becoming cannon fodder for the interests of U.S. foreign policy is not a good deal for us.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious.
That being said,
well, I'm just curious about the war in Ukraine and how that's played on, I guess, the psychology of the people in Taiwan. I mean, are you guys looking at what's going on with Ukraine, the proxy war between the United States and Russia, and thinking, oh boy, we're next?
You ask a lot of people the same question, and you're going to get different answers depending on their views. But more and more people are kind of coming to the realization, even if it's a reluctant coming to this realization, that the U.S. is not necessarily going to come and help us if a war is provoked. There's a great possibility that it'll hang us out to dry, like it's doing with the Ukrainian people after, using them to provoke a war with Russia.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that people in Taiwan are ready? I mean, there you are doing conscripted mandatory service. They, as you mentioned, they increased it from 4 months to 1 year. And that was done fairly recently, that increase. And that would signal to me that it's because the island is preparing for war. If they're saying to kids, you've got to do, instead of 4 months, you need 1 year of military service. That seems to me that there is a preparation for battle. So do you think that the Taiwanese people are prepared for that? We actually had a presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, on this show. And one of his ideas for Taiwan was to give every resident in Taiwan a gun. He was saying, get the NRA going in Taiwan, give everybody in Taiwan a gun, and then see if China chooses to invade. I mean, what is your thought on that? Do you think the Taiwanese people are ready to take up arms and start shooting at Chinese people that maybe invade the island?
I do not think people here are seeking war or want that situation to happen. And interestingly enough, substitute service, we are not military, but we do go through a 2-week kind of basic training camp at a military base. That's run by the people in the military. And when we were doing we were practicing how to shoot guns. Some of the soldiers would just talk to us, and one of them told one of the people I was there with that, yeah, he's just trying to finish his time. When you sign up for the military here as a volunteer soldier, not a conscript, it's 4 years. He just wants the 4 years to be over and just get out. They're in it for the iron rice bowl, for lack of a better term. Whereas so morale over here is not high because the military here is mostly made up of conscripts who look at it as some sort of almost like a prison sentence. You go in, you just want to get it over with. Whereas on the mainland, yeah, you sign up to join the People's Liberation Army, and you might not even get in because the line's that long, the wait list is that long. Yeah, so that says a lot about the morale, and most people intuitively know that if a war were to break out, things will not look good. And the whole thing about everyone having a gun, it reminds me of how you read articles from The Economist or whatever saying, well, a war between the mainland and Taiwan would involve an amphibious assault, and amphibious assaults are very difficult. But this is what people don't seem to understand, is that should, God forbid, military tensions break out between the two sides, amphibious assault or boots on the ground would be the very final chapter. The first 20 chapters would be very strategic bombings of runways and infrastructure that would completely paralyze the military capacity of the island. I mean, even according to military analysts that were with the Rand Corporation, I believe, don't have a very positive assessment of Taiwan's ability to defend itself from an attack by the People's Liberation Army.
It would be more like the blockade. I mean, right. I've said the same thing. I don't know if there would need to be an actual invasion with boots on the ground in Taiwan. China would just need to surround the island, blockade, and prevent any sort of goods and, like you said, transport going to and from the island. And then just making the island completely dependent on China, essentially saying, we've got you surrounded, and now you just have to deal with us. And only us. You're not going to get any help from any of these outside areas. That's what I've always envisioned. Invasion is usually, you're trying to get what would be the point of an invasion? To me, is kind of an odd thought. Like, are you wanting to fill the island with Chinese people who speak Chinese?
Well, it already is
Chinese
filled with
food,
Chinese people.
Right. I know. That's why I don't understand what the point of that would be. There's one thing when you invade areas in order to take the land, you're wanting to fill it with your people. You're wanting to take over, all the infrastructure and build, kind of colonize the area. But that's already been done in Taiwan. It is filled with Chinese people speaking Chinese, eating Chinese food. So it would be it's kind of an odd thought.
I myself recently had a conversation with a retired Taiwan businessman, Tian Ge, who is now living in California, but he was growing up in Taiwan and did his military service there as well. He recently visited Taiwan, and it was a long conversation. I picked a few minutes to give you an idea of Taiwan's election and what he saw, the increased U.S. presence. He's certain, he told me, that there is more than 200 U.S. soldiers in Taiwan, which is the official number account by the U.S. government.
还有我注意到有一个现象在台湾，我坐飞机回去就有这个感觉。很明显的可以看出来是美军，就是美国的那种年轻的小伙子啊，穿便服，然后看那个头发，一看就晓得是军人。这种人变多了。我经常来回这个洛杉矶、台北吧，以前没有这么多的这种年轻的美国人，现在变多了。还有的时候，我跟朋友我们在那个 coffee shop 坐，也就是2-3个小时了，就不断的有这种年轻的。一看就是美军的进来啊出去的啊进来出去，就是让我感觉到好像六几年7几年那个年代啊。 我住在高雄嘛，高雄港口那边有一条街叫七贤三路，那是个酒吧一条街啊。那时候我10几岁的时候，咱们男生都好喜欢跑到那边去看，一看都是美军，一手拿着酒瓶啊，反正就在那很这个画面很不好看，让我这次我回去，我又回到了这种感觉，知道吧？然后这3位候选人目前的这个民调，总是这个台独的这个赖清德，他一直都是民调第1名。不过我要告诉各位啊，这个台湾的民调啊，就是听听罢了，根本。
所以也就是说，我以前老说哈，选举它就是热闹。那他现在看来呢，他还是有这个赌，他就像赌马一样，是不是？你赌马是最后谁赢，对不对？他一样的意思了，是不是？
对，跟政治没有关系了。你看这些候选人哪有在发表政策？没有政策，因为政策是美国人定的。真正谁当选，没有任何
都这么回事
儿，
对，所以就是大家就跟着一块凑热闹，然后再加上赌博。是吧？这样
是啊，那李敖说过嘛，你台湾根本就是个自备狗粮的看门狗嘛。谁当选，绑在狗脖子上那根绳还是握在美国人手上。你选上来以后，你敢反美吗？没有人敢。你包括国民党，你看国民党那个侯友宜前2天才说的，要把这个兵役恢复到4个月，不要1年，他马上第2天改口了。这就是美国人给他的压力啊。你必须延长兵役啊，必须效法乌克兰啊，为美国利益打个仗。并且我们这是在台湾，我们都讨论的一个场景哈，就是说有那么一天，当这个武统的集结号吹响的时候哈，那蔡英文一定是把这个台湾银行的黄金啊带走，然后呢，这个逃亡路线已经演练过那么多次了，带着黄金，带着贪官污吏就飞到美国了。那么美国这里，他立刻宣布成立中华民国流亡政府。
The U.S. is not supposed to have any military personnel in Taiwan. Its relationship with Taiwan should be limited to trade and cultural exchange. But the U.S. totally ignored the 3 joint communiques. And so far, China hasn't started a war. Garland Nixon explains well in his humorous way about the situation.
U.S. would destroy Taiwan's semiconductor factories rather than letting them fall into China's hands, a former national security advisor says. Look at that. There you go. A bunch of people looking at a picture. There's TSMC, blah, blah, blah. They're all dead. Every last one of them. Not at the hands of China. This is your friend. These are the people that's coming to save you. At least they didn't attack Ukraine. At least with Ukraine, they're like, yeah, we're going to let you run into these minefields to your death. But with Taiwan, they can't wait. They're like, we can't wait for the Chinese to kill you. We'll do it ourselves. And then if there are any of you survive, then the Chinese will kill you, but you're going to die. So here's what I got to say about this before we move on. If, in fact, things play out that way, and the people of Taiwan somehow don't get the message from Ukraine, and they're like, yeah, keep sending us weapons. What for? To protect ourselves. And now China has said, look, as long as you guys don't give them help them declare independence, we're okay. But if you do that, we might have to go to war. And the U.S. is like, oh, really? So sending troops could be a red line. Yes. More troops to Taiwan, please. How about weapons? Is that a red line? Absolutely. Don't send them weapons. You got those weapons ready for Taiwan? Let's get them shipped. That's a red line. Anything else? That's the way they're like, anything else? You guys, what are you doing? Blinken and these guys are calling China. Hey guys, yeah. How come you haven't attacked Taiwan yet? Well, we really don't want to kill them. They're Chinese. They're like our brothers. You know what I mean? We don't want to kill them. I understand that. Sure, fair enough. But isn't a red line us sending weapons? Well, yeah, it is. And didn't we send weapons? Yeah, hello, and you haven't attacked them. Well, we don't want to. Okay, fair enough. How about troops? You know you don't want us to send troops, right? And China's like, yeah, we don't want you to do that. That would be a red line. We'd send in more troops. We're tripling the number of troops. Get out of here. Come on, wake up here. We've crossed your other red lines. And China's like, well, we don't want to attack them. Oh, and Blinken's like, geez, please don't say that again. You're aggravating me here. You're making this harder than it has to be, okay? And you're watching what's going on in Ukraine. We got Russia to attack them, and that worked out well. Now we got Taiwan, and you guys just won't work. You got to work with me here. You got to work with me here. You're giving me your red lines. I'm crossing your red lines, and you don't know your part in this play. Let me straighten you out here. You tell us your red lines. We then cross the red lines. You then blow the bloody hell out of Taiwan, killing most of the people and destroying, especially TSMC. But you ain't got to worry about that because we already got that covered. We've already gotten the TSMC factory moved to Arizona. We're going to blow the hell out of this one if you don't. And if you try to stop us, we will fight you because we're blowing up TSMC. So we've crossed your red lines. What do you got to do? And China's like, well, you haven't, they haven't declared independence. And China and Blinken's like, well, why didn't you tell us earlier? Tsai Ing-wen, who, God rest her soul soon. Once the war starts, she'll probably be dead quickly. But who cares about that? That's just a game we play. Adios, amigos. But we got to talk to them. Thanks a lot. That's the final red line. We got it covered. We'll get them because we're afraid, to have an election next year and all that kind of crap. And hey, this thing could go in a bad direction for us where the lives of the Taiwanese could needlessly be saved. Can't have that. We got Tsai Ing-wen on the phone and we said, hey, look, we need you to declare independence pretty soon and we'll give you a buzz when we're ready for that. And you can make that move and then boom. Okay. Now, I say all that to say this. If in fact, Taiwan does that, it's a sad state of affairs. But if you can't see that, it's kamikaze politics. It's suicide. If the people of Taiwan are still sitting around looking at Ukraine, somehow thinking that the Biden administration is going to protect them from China, it's time for them to go bye-bye. It's time. If you think these people, they're telling you they're going to blow you up. They're saying, we'll blow you up to make sure the Chinese don't get a chance to blow you up. Hey, they may blow you up. We can't wait around. We're going to blow you up first. And you're like, yeah, they're our patrons and they're looking out for us to stop war with China. Holy Jesus, to watch what's going on in Taiwan. If they get blown up, I might have to write a book. Books will be written. And this book will be called The Stupidest People in the History of the Human Race. That's what it'll be called if they continue down this path and they get the hell blown out of them after what happened to Ukraine. A book will be written. It will be called The Stupidest People in the History of Humanity. That's what it'll be called. Sadly, I think Taiwanese people, they're Chinese, they're beautiful people, they're wonderful people. But if they go down the same path as Ukraine, they will officially be the stupidest people in the history of the universe. It's just, they won't be here to be stupid, but that's the stupidest thing. So I really don't think that's going to happen, but you never know.
Governor Nixon is correct. The purpose of U.S. knowing China's red line is to cross them. Just a recap of the latest provocations from the U.S. Now, Blinken visited China on June 18th and June 19th. And the very same day when Blinken came back, on June 19th, Taiwan was invited to join a U.S.-Japanese war game simulating for a Cross-strait clash. And then on June 20th, President Biden made the remark in a campaign reception and calling President Xi Jinping a dictator. Not only that, that remark is now published on the White House website. On June 30th, the Biden administration approved a potential for 440 million arms sale to Taiwan. And the latest I heard was that there's a plan to build a biochemical lab in Taiwan, which supposedly they're planning to use a gene pool from Taiwan, studying the genes of Chinese people, I guess, potentially making weapons targeted just to use on Chinese people. In his interview, Xiang Yu mentioned that China has no problem recruiting. The wait list is long. Now, how about the US military recruitment? I came across this Wall Street Journal article recently talking about the problem there. And here it says, the US Army in 2022 had its toughest recruiting year since the advent of the all-volunteer military in 1973 and missed its goal by 25%. This year, it expects to end up about 15,000 short of its target of 65,000 recruits. It also said that only 9% of the young people aged 16 to 21 said last year they would consider military service, down from 13% before the pandemic, according to the Pentagon data. Not the soldiers, but regular public has a strong support to the unification of Taiwan. Here are two professors from Taiwan. They're also commentators. And they're talking about their observation about the sentiment from mainland China.
强调一点啊，大国动武很少考虑国际的意见只是参考值，他在选择的是什么时间、什么条件对他最有利，他就动手。这一点，民进党当局自己想清楚，自己想清楚，也就是事实上每天讲国际观感两岸人民。大陆的民众80%以上都是主张用武力来解决台湾的问题，是中国共产党的领导一直不愿意用武力，所以你才会看到他们现在还是有节制。这一点反而跟我就不太理解，我就觉得有时候会很错乱。就是民进党一直要配合的美国我反中共不反中国大陆人民，可是问题就在于中国大陆人民主张用武力来解决台湾呢，是共产党说不要这样子做然后民进党竟然要反对中国共产党，然后你这样的话，你等于是说中国共产党你应该顺从你们的人民，用武力来解决台湾，这个才是合逻辑的嘛。这个很奇怪，这个角色错乱。
你以为你在台湾那些台独，其实你有1000万人，你以为你读得了？你知道大陆这边有14亿人，我就没有见过一个例外的。我没有见过一个大人讲说，哎呀，台湾要独立，让他独立，我没有见过，反而见到很多人送我到酒店去，那个人长得很魁梧，所以他说你是刚退伍的，对我说统一战争打响了，你会征召吗？他说不用他征召，我马上回去。
Before Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last year, there was a midline. There is a line in the middle of the Taiwan Strait that both sides respected, meaning they both try not to cross that line. Now, since Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, that line will not exist, since the Chinese are flying over that line and circling around the Taiwan. And here's one of the encounters that is caught on the camera and has been gone viral China's social media.
注意，你已进入我空域，已将我非安全，立即回转脱离。
台湾是中国人，别瞎吵吵，只有中国人民解放军才能保卫台湾。
为台湾西南空域，你已进入我 ADIZ， 影响我非常安全，立即回转脱离。
台湾省永远是中华人民共和国领土不可分割的一部分啊。
There are also about a dozen universities in China now is under sanction from the United States. They're all focusing on defense-related research and development studies. In the past, these schools are not the schools to go to, but this year, the top students who are graduating from high school show enormous interest for those schools. It's interesting that the schools are under sanction seems like a plus for many students. And here are just a few footages. Even the universities themselves find it interesting that they are under sanction. Here is one of the university president talking about this.
莫名其妙的还把我们学校拉上了黑名单，当然我觉得很自豪。已经都这样了，大国都博弈了，我们留学生去他都 不让我们去了，他说你来学莎士比亚行，然后你学的自然科学就算了吧。这你还不如学秦腔呢，对吧？我就在这学就完了，我跑你那学什么莎士比亚呀？
The last one is the one that really got viral. This is another university president speaking. One of China's leading tip researcher Huang Lingyi, who recently passed away, and here is what he says about her.
不久前刚刚离开我们的微电子所研究员黄令一老师，为了解决国家芯片卡脖子问题，年近80，依然坚守在龙芯研发中心。他说：“我这辈子最大的心愿，就是匍匐在地，擦干祖国身上的耻辱。”每次想到这句话，我都泪流满面。希望我们国科大的毕业生能以老一辈优秀科学家为榜样，奔着最紧急、最紧迫的问题去，永远不要让核心技术的壁垒成为我们强国道路上难以逾越的鸿沟。
Oh, I want to say this, that Taiwan has never been a country. It was occupied by the Dutch for 38 years in 17th century. Then it was occupied by the Japanese for 50 years until the end of World War II. For hundreds of years, if not longer, Taiwan has always been part of China. Strictly speaking, there is a very small number of natives that should be called the Taiwanese. The rest are all Chinese. They all come from China, including the Taiwan president, Tsai Ing-wen, who claimed he was Chinese 10 years ago. The commentators are all correct. I don't know a single person from mainland that is okay with Taiwan breakaway. Not even people who are highly critical of the Chinese government, not a single one. And more than 80% of the people support using force to solve the Taiwan issue. The only reason the war hasn't started is because the Chinese government has been exhibiting constraint. But it is getting harder because people are losing patience. From the signing of the Treaty of Nanking, in which Hong Kong was taken by the British, and is the result of losing the first open war in 1842, China endured more than 100 years of humiliation. Finally, through hard work and peacefully, China is on its way to resume its rightful place in the world, a well-respected great power that being treated equal. The US has been doing everything it can to impede China's rise, surrounding China with more than 300 military bases, using Taiwan as an excuse to constantly provoke China. There are plenty of angry comments left on the comment sections of those videos that I share with you, including some of my own programs in China. Many people believe it is pure racism. The reports are saying that the Chinese leader agree now that if any incident happens in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait, instead of mitigating it through diplomatic channels, China will just go all the way to unify Taiwan. Why does the United States want to pick up a fight with nuclear power and 1.4 billion angry people is beyond me. It is true that the US has more than 15 times the nuclear warhead as China. But to quote a high-ranking Chinese military official speaking to his counterpart from the US, he said, "We understand that the United States can destroy China hundreds of times. We in China, however, are satisfied with destroying the United States only once." So that is China's approach to the whole matter. Well, it seems the US may soon get what it wished for. All I can say is China is ready. I want to thank Kim Iverson and Gardner Nixon for allowing me to use their content. If you like this program, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.